Hello, it's Melanie, co-founder of Strategic Peaks, and this is the latest video in our CRO series. In this video, I interview Mark Truman, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of EdgePetrol. Here's a little bit of background on EdgePetrol. They provide software to fuel retailers to increase station profitability across their portfolios. Their software does things like weighted and blended margins, live volumes, live profits, and connections to competitor pricing. Mark shared with me some extremely useful insights about how his marketing, sales, and customer success teams really work together, what he would encourage any customer-facing operation to have in terms of key software and technology to enable them. I won't get into it here because that would be spoiler alert. And he also talks through some different approaches that companies can take for their customer-facing teams based on, what their size is and what their maturity is and their history. And so he's got a different approach for established companies versus startups. If you are in a customer-facing role, especially if you are on a leadership team, then you are definitely going to want to stay tuned for this interview. I had so much fun interviewing Mark, and I really hope that you find it helpful. If you would, please leave a comment below letting us know what is the biggest takeaway from the interview for you. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so, and then you'll get notified when we have new videos coming out. With that, enjoy, and we'll talk again soon. Well, thank you for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
Yes. And we've been chatting a little bit, but I think it would be great if you could walk us through your background and how you ended up being CRO.
Well, I've kind of always been in sales. I started out from school in sales, and I kind of fell into oil and gas or energy, if you like. One of my friends was working at a company. Didn't really, I was still at that age. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I thought, yeah, I'll go work with one of my friends. That sounds fun. And that was selling. They sold data around oil and gas assets, power, renewables assets. Did a few years there. Kind of started managing a team there, and I felt like I hit a bit of a ceiling. So I segued and went to work for a big FTSE 100 called Reed Elsevier, and which is where I was working at ICIS. Which is they operate in the gas market, but I was working on carbon and power analytics. And then from there, I got poached back from my old company. Went back there to be the VP of sales. And I guess another 3 years there, and I felt like I hit another ceiling. So how did I end up being a CRO? It's actually quite a funny story. So after we had our second child, my wife was a freelancer working in a shared workspace in Camden in London. And Gideon, the CEO, I've known him for a long time. So, like a friend, but not a close friend. And he was in Geneva. So when I used to go out there, I used to see him. And as far as I knew, he was still in Geneva. My wife knows him too, bumps into him in this shared workspace, working out a one-man office. Previously, he was working at Trafigura, and which is a large oil trading. Trafigura, right? So it was a bit of a shock for her to see him. What are you doing here? Oh, I've come back to start my own business. It's called EdgePetrol. And it does this and that. And at the time, Claire was in film PR, so it didn't really resonate what he was talking about. She was like, I saw Gideon, he's doing something. You should probably chat to him. Yeah, it's something to do with petrol and software. I don't know. So I called him. He said, come in and have a look. And he showed me what he was doing. I was like, wow. And this looks incredible. And it was just exactly what I was looking for. And he said, if you want to come work here, I'll give you this fancy job title. I'd never heard of it before. And that was about 4 years ago. And I was like, yeah, it's got chief in it. I'll take it. And that was kind of my first ever experience. I went home, I had to Google it. What does the chief revenue officer do, right? He didn't know either. Yeah. So that's how I ended up as the chief revenue officer. So I didn't seek it. I kind of, like a lot of the things in my career, I've kind of fallen into it. Right place, right time, I guess.
I remember when you and I were talking before, you were saying they gave you the title, but it still started off primarily as a sales position.
Yeah. So the role has changed completely.
Yeah.
So when we started out, it was myself, Gideon, and our former CTO, Andrew. And it was just the three of us working. So I was employee number 2 of the business back in September 2017. So about 3.5 years ago. And we were, up and down the country, right? Trying to we sell to gas stations, right? So anything from a single site operator up to a couple of hundred stations, maybe a bit more. and we were just cold call, doing like the most unscalable things you could imagine, right? Trying to work out how to make a business scale by doing non-scalable things. And it included driving up and down the country. I would drive to Glasgow to see for a £1,000 deal, right? To go and meet somebody and back in a day. I do 12 hours of driving for that. And it was, yeah, it was, we were clocking up, 50, 60,000 miles on the car a year, just driving around. And we got to a point where once we started understanding and picking up customers, we were able to really start putting in place what we needed to start scaling the business. And we're still doing that. I mean, we're not fully scaled yet. So we're still going through that process. But it was, it was very much a sales job when I started, and it was everything. I was in marketing, sales. So really, in a way, revenue was a good title, but I wasn't really chief of anything. It was just go get revenue, like go find a way to do it. Yeah.
Well, when nobody else is there, you could be the chief still, just chief of yourself.
Yeah. I was chief of myself. Yeah.
I think, I when I've talked to startups as well about their marketing, I always tell them, I'm like, if you haven't figured out what it takes to get the sale, don't do it. Like, start really working on not to say like, don't think about branding. I think that's important and that messaging is important, but go figure out your sales, and it has to be that unscalable way, and then put marketing in, and marketing will help you on the scaling when it's ready to scale up. But you have to know, like, if you don't know what makes a customer buy, or how long their sales cycle is, or what that process is like on their end, like, go figure that out first.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things we were talking about Airbnb before, and I was listening to, I can't actually remember the name of the podcast, and I've got a feeling you're going to ask me about what I listened to a bit later on, right? I can't remember the name of it. It's really good. I'll send it to you. But they had Airbnb on, right? One of the founders, and they were like, yeah, in the early days, we, similar to I was saying, we're doing all this non-scalable stuff, and we were just trying to work out what a good experience looked like for our customer. And they started with like a 1-star experience. Oh, you get somewhere to stay, and you go pick up the key and you go in. And they did it all the way up to kind of like a 15, 20, 30, 40-star experience of what and a most amazing, holiday. Like I get to go here, and, then I get picked up at the airport and then dropped off at this event, and I go to this great party, and, what a full experience would look like. And I think we kind of, I hadn't heard this podcast at that point, but it resonated with me because we kind of was sitting with, retailers, petrol retailers who've been doing the same thing for 30 years. They're really smart guys, like they're and girls, and they've gone and really, with limited kind of options around software and so on, they've kind of been left behind a little bit in technology, and they've found ways to go and do things. And we, how do you market someone like that, right? You don't know, that they've got no online presence really. They're starting to find LinkedIn, and they don't know they've got a problem, because they don't really have a problem. Like, what we do is create an opportunity. In pricing, I mean, they don't have a problem. And then we've had to tap into their kind of overall challenges, right? Around certain things. And that's probably only been over the last kind of year that we've really found and developed that marketing message. So I would say 2.5 to 3 years in was the point where we found that. So you're totally right. And what we were doing is going and talking to them and going, well, hold on, what would great look like, right? Okay, this is what you're doing at the moment, but what would be amazing?
Yeah.
And we were really trying to strive for that. And when we finally hit the nail on the head, we were kind of like, right, this is our marketing message, and we lead with that now. And we're starting to put together, what are our pillars of outreach? What are the pillars of content that we want to work on? And what's going to resonate with our market. So we've kind of gone through a pretty long process over the last 3 years. And we didn't have a full-time marketing person until probably a couple of years in.
And your VP of marketing is your wife, right?
Yes.
Like
she's actually sat opposite me right now. So I've got to be really careful of what I say.
She can kick you under the desk or something.
She can kick me under the desk. I am within reach. Yeah. Claire started out as just doing a bit of part-time work for us, right? So it was, around kind of posting on social, which was getting minimal traction to begin with. making sure the website and branding was consistent rather than, anything. So it was kind of the bits and bobs, if you like. And over time, her role just grew. So she now works. Her team is a team of 2 at the moment. We're looking for 1 more, probably be 3 by the end of the year. So 3 and Claire. So we've got Claire and we've got Eric, who's marketing assistant. We're currently looking for demand gen. And I think we're in desperate need of content person.
That is like the holy grail of marketers right now, are the content.
It's all about content. At the moment, that's kind of me. I'm spending a lot of my time putting content together, but I guess that's what I do. Like I think one of the things that the job title gives me is the freedom to put my resources into the area which is most important at that given point in time. So at the moment, priority is top of the funnel. So right, how do we get top of the funnel? We need content. We need anchors of outreach, reasons to reach out to people. So if that means I've got to spend 2 or 3 hours of my day putting content together, that's going to help get the results. That's what I've got to do. Yeah. So we don't have the luxury of just being able to go higher as and whenever we want. We've grown a lot. When I started, it was just me, Gideon, and Andrew, and now it's kind of between 30 and 40 people. I don't even know how many because we're spread across the world. And yeah, it's growing, but still a startup.
For your target customer petrol stations, is it typically like, are you dealing with one person or do you get like a buying committee of people?
I guess when you think about the disruptor model, which is I guess what we are, you have to start with the smaller customers and the ICP of the market and sorry, that ICP within the market. So we are very much selling to, typically it'll be one person involved up to a number of stations, so we really think in number of stations, right? It's relative to deal value. So like really 10 stations is X money, and so on. But it's better to think in number of sites. And we tend to deal with the 1 to 200 site area. And if you've got one site, I mean, you're talking to the person who not only owns the business, but is on the station, running the station, changing any issues. They're changing the fire bucket as per the regulations every couple of weeks. They're behind the cashier. They're in, they're under the hood. They're in there. When you get to the top end of it, you will come across a buying committee of sorts, but they're not consistent at all. So that makes the sale more difficult, of course.
I guess one of the things I'm curious about is, so some B2B companies, they, when they're heavy and like we have to convince several people at this company about this and it's a long sales cycle, they'll go with more ABM stuff where they're doing like more one-to-one relationships or one-to-few. And it's more of, almost in a way, sales gets more of the glory in that because you have to have those relationships. Or if you've got smaller things where you're selling more off one people, you do kind of, I don't want to call it mass marketing because it's not the same as consumer, but you can do more of these like inbound automated one-to-many types of things where marketing has a bigger emphasis. Since you're kind of overseeing both marketing and sales and service, how do you think about that balance between marketing and sales?
It's important to note that we work in a niche market and we have a niche product. So really, when you're thinking about one-to-many, there isn't many, right? There's not like this huge pool of online, people that you can get stuck. Remember, we can't go to events at the moment. So it's very difficult to action marketing in that way, right? To hit many or to do like a more blanket approach for marketing. So just by the forces of nature, we have to be, we have to be quite specific about the way we market and who we market to and the content that goes out there. But it's equally as difficult to put an ABM approach together because our ICP is not enterprise, right? We're not selling to BP and Shell. We're selling to, I don't know, Mark Truman Limited, right? Not specifically, but Yeah, so it's an independent retailer, or a small private equity backed retailer, maybe a smaller oil company or supplier, or in the US they call them jobbers, and fuel marketers, right, who might have 50, 60, 70 stations, but it's a family business that's gone through 3 generations. So it's important to note that we're quite unique. So if anyone's taking any advice from this, they've got to make sure it fits into their business. But that conflict, you might call it, between sales and marketing that exists. We don't really have it here. It's I think this is one of the big benefits of having a revenue person, that you can target everybody on revenue. Like, we have our revenue and our North Star. These are the things we focus on. So marketing, they might have slightly different KPIs, and we're not huge on KPIs. Like we don't really have the data yet, because we're high touch niche market. We've got 60 customers. If I take the UK market, there's, outside of the single stations, there's only a few hundred companies that we could actually really go and sell to if you remove the single stations from the equation. I guess we don't have the data to do that. So what we've, I've been one of those people who's caused conflict between sales and marketing in a previous life, right? I've seen it firsthand, and I've been part of it firsthand. And the problem was always is that marketing had their targets, sales have their targets. You're stopping me from hitting my target, right? That was the attitude that I had as a salesperson. Where are my leads? Why am I not getting it? Why is the quality of leads low? Marketing going, why aren't you converting my leads? Right. And we just don't have that here. We're the team, they know they've got different roles, or I know they've got different responsibilities, but similar roles. Or maybe the other way around, different roles, same responsibility, right? Being revenue, being responsibility. And, that's one of the great things that Claire, so Dan is our VP of sales, and Claire, like, they've got this fantastic working relationship where, Dan can be like, hey, Claire, like, we need to do this. Like, we need this, we need help with this. And Claire will be like, great, right? This is my idea of how we're going to do it. Dan will be like, that's great, or change this, or I don't agree with that. And they'll have like I sit here, I've got to listen to it all day, right? Those two going on, right? So that's the bad part of it, because Claire always says Dan lives in our house with us. He's got this really thick kind of mishmash of an accent from New Zealand, Australia, and the US, right, and the UK and Sweden. He's at all the places he's lived. Yeah. So you go to bed and you have his voice in your ear. But they're a great team. And then Sarah is our customer success VP, and they're providing the case studies and the social proofing, right? They know we need it. They know the sales team need referrals, and there's no complaints, right? Across the board, we're all working towards the same goal, and that's to make Edge a great business, a fun place to work, and successful, right?
It's funny. I think there's this different approach now, with whether that's the focus on revenue or the focus on the customer. Obviously, they typically go hand in hand. But where the marketing, sales, and service, they can be really aligned together and work together, as opposed to like at war and feel like they're competing for resources and attention and that kind of stuff. And I see this, even in technology, where it's like, I said the other day to Matt, I was like, I just can't wait, like in a few years from now, when we're going to have this whole like generation of companies where they're not putting in a CRM database or, marketing analytics to like as a retrofit to their business. Like they'll have had it since the start. And I feel like that culture, that approach, that mentality, it's the same of like, you have this blessing of starting a company where, the first, as employee number 2, you're the chief revenue officer. And so you can, from the get-go, build in that team structure and that dynamic, which hopefully, obviously as you grow, that you want that to continue as you guys scale up. That's interesting. It's nice hearing when it works, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, like we're another one of those, like we've got conflict.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, and that's a really good point you make about, I guess if I was to join a startup again tomorrow, which I'm not going to tomorrow, but I might do one day, it would be, before I even signed on the paper, I'd be like, right, we need HubSpot, Gong, sales loft, like to make this work, like we need to have the tech stack, and this is the investment. And I listen, there's a guy called Dave Gerhardt, he works for a company called Privy. He used to work at Drift, which do the chat bots. So they got some real cool marketing, and he's got great, he's got some great content. And Claire was listening to earlier, and I said everything that Claire does sits across me, so I overheard it. They were talking about, SDRs and where SDRs should sit within the business. And what was quite refreshing is that the person, I don't know if I couldn't work out if it was Dave himself or who was talking to, but the person they were talking to said, look, it doesn't really matter, right, where your SDRs sit. For me, if you ask me that question, I'd be like, yeah, sales, right? But what they were saying is, marketing, has more, has less budget constraints than sales typically within a business. Right. And it kind of, and that's why, and you want to enable your SDRs, right? Because, okay, you can go and pay big money for like a webinar and this and that, the other. But at the end of the day, if you can turn your SDRs from booking 5 to 6 meetings across 3 SDRs, suddenly, you're growing your business by, 10-15%, just like that, right? By just one extra meeting. And, it was talking about how marketing should be an enabler for the whole business. And I thought that really resonated to me, because I know that, even when sales need to sign something off, that have got it signed off with Claire before I've even heard about it. So like Claire will dedicate marketing budget to sales activities, and because what's going on in Claire's head, it's not right. I need to do this and I need to hit this KPI or get this many MQLs. It's this business needs this amount of revenue. Yeah. Right. I'm speaking to Dan, and Dan's telling me I need this tool, or I need the one we invested in recently is called Lead Finder or Lead Feeder. Feeder, and it just tells you who's been on your website and gives you that visibility, and it shows you analytics and how many times they've been on. Not a hugely expensive tool. And instead of coming to me, Dan just went to Claire, and Claire was like, yeah, I'm not really going to use this, but if it's going to help us generate revenue, like that's a good use of my budget and my resource. So it was really, that's really a great way of working. I think having marketing, thinking about revenue and focused on delivering pipeline that's going to close, rather than thinking about being a bit self-serving and thinking about MQLs and their own role. And that's one of the reasons I think we're successful, is that we've built that structure. And like you're talking about right from the beginning, right, sales and marketing fell into one place. And it's kind of, that mentality started from the beginning, which is, well, if I'm going to spend my time in a marketing activity, it needs to have an end sales result. Otherwise, it's literally a waste of my time. I could be picking up the phone.
That's an engineer. I'm turning him into a marketer slowly.
Good luck.
We're very don't do marketing for the sake of marketing. That's got to be supporting a business goal. And I think that's true for the sales of you can book 30 calls, but if those 30 calls and meetings aren't with the right people and they're not going to translate into a sale, then you're just, it looks great that you're busy. You're doing a lot of stuff, but and I do think a lot of that comes from the top. I mean, some of that gets into the culture of the company.
Everyone takes responsibility. If we don't hit our sales targets, that runs through the entire business. Not only revenue, but on tech and products as well. It's everyone is partially accountable for that number. And if we fail as a business. We succeed as a business. And I think that's one of the things that I and kind of everyone loves about working at Edge. That it is a joint success and failure. And hopefully only success moving forward. But you've got to fail to learn things occasionally. I think that's really important. That I think the word is accountability, and everyone's taking their piece of that. That allows you to be a bit more, I guess that allows people to be more flexible with sharing budgets and sharing time and resource and sharing staff, right? Sharing the resources that they have available to them. We'll have salespeople putting together content. We'll have marketing people, helping enrich sales, and it's helping enrich leads, and it's just a team effort, which is really positive. Yeah.
I want to go back to what you were saying earlier of so Gideon gave you this job and said, I'm going to give you this fancy title of Chief Revenue Officer, and you went home and Googled it. So how did you figure out this? Because it's a relatively new position, especially I think within energy companies, especially like I think it started tech first, and you guys are energy tech, so you have software. But how did you navigate learning what a chief revenue officer is and does, and what you should be worried about?
I did a lot of reading. I guess part of the problem with us is that, again, we're very different, right? If I started going to a lot of SaaS events. There's one really good one called Sales Confidence, which used to be at the London Excel. Now it's all done online. It's equally as good, but you kind of sit there and you think 70 to 80% of it, like, it's just irrelevant to us. We're not going to do that. We don't have that kind of online presence. We're not going to be able to use these tools. And funny thing is, I sit here a couple of years later after being in there, and we're using those tools. And you find ways to make the things that other people are doing, adapt to your business.
Yeah.
We're a big user and believer in something called Gong, which allows you to record all the sales calls and analyzes them for you, and analyzes at-risk deals. It's a phenomenal product. Like, I can't stress enough to any sales, marketing, customer success organization how that helps us build out our products and run the sales team and coach remote sales teams. It's incredible. I don't work there, by the way. It's yeah, I think I'd be good at selling it. You got to believe in it, believe in what you're selling. But these tools, which I learned about a couple of years back, Dan came in last July and he was like, we need this stuff. And I was like, well, he was like, Truman, we need this stuff, right? Trust me, we need SalesLoft. We need Gong. Like, we've got to get out there. And they've just been amazing for us, because we've had to really learn what we need to do using the same tools, right? We've got HubSpot marketing. So I think what took me a long time to do was I went out there and listened to other chief revenue officers or other revenue divisions or revenue presentations, blogs, everything, books, right? On this role. And so much of it wasn't relevant. I had to kind of try and fit these square pegs into round holes and try and find a way to make it work for EdgePetrol. And I think we're now seeing that. We're seeing that. We're able to remotely coach our sales team. We're bringing in, we're creating anchors of outreach. We're bringing in, from the cadences we're running in SalesLoft, from the activities we're running on HubSpot marketing. Like, we're there now at a place where we're like, right, you know what? Like, we're starting to build a predictable revenue model. And up until this point, we haven't had that. It's been very sporadic. We relied a lot on events.
Yeah.
So we were pushed into it a little bit. We very much were relying on outside sales. And, obviously COVID has made us really take on board that technology. And I guess now realize that we are in a, that we can use this stuff and you can make it fit your business if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah. So did you guys start putting that stuff in place before COVID or as response to COVID?
Some of it before, HubSpot marketing, for example. I think COVID just ramped it up, right? I just remember, so we went to a couple of events, this when I was in Houston, and we went to one in Miami. These were great times. Stuck in London now. We went to one in Miami, we went out to Kansas City, which I'd never been to before, which is a really, really nice place. And we were coming back and we had this pipeline of like 40, 50 deals, and they were all like qualified. And this is incredible. We were like, I can't, America are amazing. We get, we've hit the jackpot here. And then boom, border shut, can't move out to New York. We're going to have to do everything remote. And we were kind of in shock for 3 months. Right. And then Dan joined in July and was like, right guys, what are we doing here? Right. And, he was like, look, if we're sitting here waiting for these deals to come in, like, these guys have just had their whole worlds turned upside down. This pipeline of 40, 50, it's not in the pipeline anymore. Right. We've got to find new pipe. And we're only going to do it by changing to an inside sales team. And, you get the typical sales resistance. It's like, well, hey, like, this is what I signed up for. I signed up to go to events and network, and that's my skill set. And they've had to adapt. Right. And it's given marketing a lot of work to do, which is great. It's given me a lot of work to do, which is great. but we've really, I would say it was less of a response to COVID, but more of a stuff we probably should have been doing before, as well as the outside sales, that we were spoiled in a way to have all these events and have all these great meetings and deals coming for these events that we just didn't need it. And I think it was the shock to the system we needed. And we are now in a place where when events start coming back, we've booked in a few for this year, maybe wishful thinking, but we'll find out. One in San Antonio actually coming up, which I won't be able to attend, but my colleagues in America will get to go to. And with those events coming back up, it's like, yeah, we're sorting the predictable side out, and then you've got these cherries on the top, so you're going to pick up from events now. And I think we needed to do that. I think it's as a company that works in a difficult market to reach, that's our number one problem. Learning how to reach them outside of events has been a big learning curve for us. And COVID has blessed us in a way. You know, we work in an industry that's essential. That's key. And yeah, we haven't lost any customers. None of our customers have shut down. Everyone's still going. And I think compared to, if you look at the oil and gas industry from, the top right through to retail for all of this, and obviously the way that COVID coincided with, demand reduction coincided with a huge production increase, right, from OPEC, right?
Did you see much of a change when the oil price went negative?
It was madness for our customers. So without going into too much detail, one of the USPs of our product is working out an accurate cost of product. So when you're setting a pole sign price, you want to know, how's my volume doing? We provide that live. You want to understand, right, where are my competition at? Because if you didn't have competition, you could price whatever you wanted, really. Yeah. And the last piece is, well, what's my fuel cost to me? And what we do is we blend all the fuel in the tanks to give you an accurate number that is live and moving, because the amount of fuel in your tank's always moving, because people are taking fuel out. So you were getting, we had customers who would take a delivery on the Monday and it'd be at one price, and then you'd get a delivery on the Tuesday. It was like 30% cheaper, right? And we're blending these two together, and we talk about this. What they were using before is this replacement cost number. How much does it cost me to take fuel today, right? And on our product, it compares that replacement cost number to your blended cost number. And usually you see 1 or 2 pennies, still really important, but it's 1 or 2 pennies, and it's going to affect my decision. But it's not like, we're seeing 20, 30 pennies. We're seeing $1 on the gallon, right? Differences in what people would have thought their fuel was costing and what the actual mix of fuel was in the tanks. So it went absolutely mad. And you watch the volumes. So obviously we're tracking all the volumes in the markets we work in, and we aggregate that data as well. And you just see it go poof. And the amount of fuel in everyone's tank just staying like this, right? And yeah, it really was a crazy time for our customers, but brilliant for us. It's helped having that visibility of what's going on. Inconsistency is good for our business, bad for our customers, but good for our business, because it helps our customers, understand what's happening on their stations. Right. So we definitely took advantage of that, like not in a bad way, but it's how we've built a lot of case studies over the last kind of 6 months, and that response that the market's taken to COVID. I think retail has survived the best, because unlike a midstream company or a trader or an E&P company, they can sell Mars bars. They can sell chocolate and Gatorades, and they can be an innovative, right? And I think that's. Sorry, say again.
Multiple revenue streams.
They've got multiple revenue streams, and those revenue streams are growing. It isn't just a fuel business anymore. So they did really well, and you can imagine, consumers both in the US and the UK were choosing to go to your local grocery store, right, or which in a lot of cases is a fuel retailer, instead of going to your big kind of hypermarket where there's loads of people, right, instead of Walmart, right, for example. So they did really well. The shop margins are bigger than the fuel margins, and the reduction in volume was probably totally offset, and in some cases and then some, by the shop sales. So they've done pretty well.
So I'm curious, what has surprised you about the role? Has there been anything you're like, I really wasn't expecting that?
I think that I was able to do it. I mean, that's, you know, I was like, when you're, it's not the first time in my career I've kind of fallen into something, but it was really like, how do you take this product that I've never seen? How do you take this and you turn it into a big kind of, you know, not big, but like a business that's generating revenue, right? You know, $1 million in ARR, milestone ticked, and, you know, this, and all from zero. I think I was just surprised that we were able to get, you know, Gideon and I and the rest of the team have been able to take it so far so quickly.
Yeah.
And I guess that would be, you know, anyone who's thinking of moving into this type of position, or has that opportunity. I think that's the one thing, is that you'll be surprised like what you can pick up, how quickly you can pick it up. You know, and I wouldn't say that I know a lot about marketing. I would definitely, you know, I would say that any person in my team in their individual vertical is better than me at each one of the things they do. They're specialists and I'm a generalist, and I guess that surprised me, like how I was able to let go of it. And, you know, a lot of the time they'll ask me questions and I'll be like, hey, that's not my decision. That's your decision. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's, you know, it's me that should be asking you that question. Right. That's what you're here to do. And I think being able to let go like that has probably surprised me as well, especially I've got quite a controlling personality.
Yeah.
So I think I guess it surprised me that I've had to let go of it. And that I guess it's and you mentioned earlier about the tension between marketing and sales, and that conflict that you know, a CRO has between getting those two to tick. And I think that as a salesperson who's had those conflicts before, that was definitely surprising, right? That you can build a revenue unit. I've never experienced that before.
They're the people that come through just sales. There are people that do sales and marketing, and there's some people that come into the CRO from finance. Do you feel like it was a good thing that you came from sales and marketing, or not matter?
I don't think it really matters. I think it's a very much a get it done role, right? It's a get it done role. It's a role where you've got, it's all about working stuff out. That's what it is, right? Especially if you're talking startup. I think it's different if you're a long established company and you've got to come in and make, you know, I guess it's making sense of what's going on around you. I guess it's the same if you were to walk into, I don't know, Bureau Veritas as an example, right? You know, you walk in there and you're tasked with being the chief revenue officer of that business. They may never have had one before, and you know, you've got to start aligning sales, marketing, customer success. You know, the first thing you've got to do is make sense of it, right? So I think if you're smart and hardworking, I think really anyone who has those two attributes, that I'm not necessarily applying to myself, but I think if you've got those attributes, you could do any job. Like, okay, you know, other than trained professional jobs like surgery, right? A surgeon. Interestingly enough, Gideon is an accountant by trade, and he was a financial controller at Trafigura before becoming a gasoline trader, right? Before starting his own business in software. So, you know, I don't think it matters that much, but I would say that what have I benefited from a background in sales, and that I was able to get out there and sell it. And I think that the one difference I've seen in a lot of other startups that didn't go and get a CRO, didn't go and get a salesperson early on. One of the startups that was in our building, I won't name them, that was in that shared workspace with us, that we were there 4 years ago. They'd already been there for 2 years. They still don't have any revenue. They're 6-7 years. They don't have any revenue. Like, that to me is unbelievable. And the second I walked in through the door, Gideon was like, go and sell this.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to learn a new skill.
Right.
And by selling it,
you didn't need you didn't need a playbook either. So you didn't need someone to tell you how to go.
I had to build a playbook. And that would have been a lot harder to do if I hadn't had that experience. And I know that playbook was not great, because we now have a new playbook, because we have a new VP of sales and he's better at it than I am. So, you know, I know where, like, that was a big learning curve for me when you bring someone into your team and they're, showing you what you've been doing wrong. And you're like, you're right. That's quite hard. But yeah, I'd say that background, allowed us to get up and running quickly. And I think that's key. I would say to anyone who's thinking about hiring a CRO, it doesn't even matter if they're a CRO. If you're talking from a startup level, getting to revenue quickly is really important, because it gave us the customers and the prospects to learn more about the market and to learn how to market our product and how to make our customers successful.
Yeah.
Without getting those companies on early, the early adopters on and in quickly, we might still be, we know our ICP, we know where we sit in the market at the moment. We might still be trying to sell, because we did the enterprise sales, cycles, right, a few times. Gideon and I flew out to South Africa and back from London in the same day. 4 hours in South Africa, Cape Town, meeting, back home, right? And just to go and meet, because they were such a big company, we're like, yeah, let's do it. And I think if we hadn't gone early, and it was maybe somebody different not from me, but from a sales-minded person, we'd probably still be at 0 customers and chasing enterprise deals and just working on changing our product to suit a different ICP, rather than looking at what we've got and defining our ICP that we know is underserved and that we can help in the market. I think that was really important.
So if you could click your fingers and improve one thing in what you're managing, what would be like?
My personal sales skills, maybe. So I don't have to keep telling Dan he's right. I would say, and my personal marketing, customer success skills as well. So I don't have to keep telling them they're right. I think top of the funnel in our industry is the biggest challenge, right? Getting deals into the hands of the SDRs, or getting prospects into the hands of the SDRs, and taking it from there. I mean, once we're in front of somebody with the product, like, our sales team is so good, and even our SDRs, high quality. They're pretty new, and it's just feeding them. I guess you could even go back a step further. I guess the problem I'd solve is reaching our market. Is being able to put valuable content in front of people, and getting them to engage in it. I don't think there's a problem we've fully solved yet. There's a lot of noise out there. People have webinar fatigue.
Oh yeah.
So it's tough to get people to engage, and I think that would give us a lot. If we could double what's coming up through the pipeline, we'd be growing twice as quickly. I mean, it's that simple. Anything
you feel like I haven't asked you that I should be asking you?
I think I've learned from doing a lot of the talking about my own thoughts that I don't put out there or write down or say out loud sometimes. That really it's about having the consistency across the team. Is point one. Point two is just make sure you get out there and start selling quickly if you're a startup. And if you're bringing in a CRO into a larger business, their background probably isn't important. They need to be able to assess. Attention to detail, is a massive thing. And just they need to be able to see what's around them and build a plan that suits and fits, because it's never one size fits all. You've got to bend and adapt the products and the tech and the staff and everything to suit that particular business.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
See you, Melanie. Bye.